Hello and welcome to DSLBD's Lunch and Learn about DC Startup Week. My name is Kate Marin. I'm a program manager for the Innovation and Equitable Development team at the Department of Small and Local Business Development. Every week, Wednesdays at noon, we have a lunch and learn on different topics for DC small businesses and entrepreneurs. And we are so excited this week to have Rachel Koreski with us from DC Startup Week. I can't even tell you, she's going to have to tell you how many years she has been building up DC Startup Week. I met her a number of years ago and I've been so excited to see DC Startup Week continue to build year on year, get bigger and better from a volunteer perspective, a labor of love, how much the startup community in DC cares to bring itself together and to provide additional support to DC entrepreneurs. So I'm going to turn things over to Rachel now, and I know she's going to present, but also to take questions throughout. So feel free to put them in the chat and I'll help support that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Koreski. First, thank you so much to Catherine and DSLBD team for putting together this lunch and learn about DC Startup Week and all the support of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in DC. My name is Rachel. Again, I'm full-time founder, day job of a company called UPace. We develop mobile technology for fitness and wellness centers in the community recreation space. And I started DC Startup Week along with Cheetah about 5 years ago. Really a community of coming together to celebrate the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in DC, but also to connect entrepreneurs, founders of startups of all different types of industries, all different types of levels of entrepreneurship. So we have members who are from idea phase all the way to looking to get their company acquired or looking to hire their next 10 people. You kind of name it. And that's the most important part of DC Startup Week, is connecting everyone together to learn together, to ask questions, to support one another, as well as celebrate the successes, as well as get through the failures as one united group. So this year, our DC Startup Week is this 18th to the 23rd, which is in about 3 weeks away, which is insane. What it combines of, it's 5 full days from about 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. each day, filled with educational content, 100 plus events, 200 plus expert speakers, over 1,000 different startups will attend, probably about 5,000 to 6,000 founders, employees of startups, or community leaders, investors, you kind of name it, throughout the ecosystem. So real fast, if you go to our website, dcstartupweek.org, is where you can find out more information about overall the work that we're doing for it. The biggest thing is that you're able to then click here to grab your DC Startup Week pass, and we'll go over the Eventbrite link in just a second. One thing just to kind of highlight is who should really come to DC Startup Week is really first have early stage founders. So that could be someone, if you have an idea, but you're looking for, how do I make it a reality? How do I take it to the next level? To someone who's working on their product, looking for how to sell, how to perform partnerships. Growth stage founders, if you're hiring, if you're raising a fund, fundraising, anything along those lines. People in the startup ecosystem, if you work with startups, if you're a service-based company or industry, that is a huge thing. Any type of service providers, investor, venture capital, as well as anyone who might work for you at your particular startup. Our 5 themes of content that you'll see throughout the week that will have 100 plus educational sessions, which include panels, fireside chats, mentor hours, Ask an Expert series, founder stories, all fall into early stage founder track. That's where you'll hear about how to get started with accounting, how do you create your financial plans, how do you get your first customer. Growth stage track about due diligence if you're doing a fundraising round. Hear from different founders and how they raise millions of dollars in venture capital. Service-based track, social impact, as well as culture, all really targeting and going deep into the different areas within it. Throughout the week of this full schedule is going to be announced middle of next week, where you're able to see all the different contents and sign up for each individual session. But just as a quick highlight of what the week looks like from Monday through Friday, Monday morning will kick off. It's going to be a full day filled with virtual content. Tuesday, it's going to be a combination between virtual as well as in person. We'll have an experience in person. It is ticketed, and I'll show you on that on Eventbrite. For that be in person, we're asking for the attendees to be vaccinated, and if not vaccinated, to show proof of a negative COVID test within 24 hours of the start time of the event. Of that in-person day, it's going to kick off with a lunch, followed by about 4 to 5 hours of educational content, then a pitch competition, and then we're going to close out that Tuesday with a happy hour. So it's going to be really fun and exciting to be able to safely meet and gather in person, not only for networking, but also to learn together. Wednesday, we have a full day of virtual content, and then we're going to be having a happy hour, which is going to be held at a venue completely outside here in DC that also is ticketed, and we're also asking for proof of vaccination, and if not vaccination, a negative COVID test again within 24 hours. Thursday, again, full day of virtual content. Friday, another full day of virtual content. So we're excited that this year is going to be that hybrid experience of having to have a combination of both. Just moving over here. So once you click into right here, grab your DC Startup Week Pass now, it's going to take you to our Eventbrite page where you're able to sign up for your particular ticket. And just something to note for this year, what we do have here is all the virtuals, a completely free ticket like it's been for every single year that you're able to have. We do have fees associated with our Tuesday, October 19th day of pricing for that of our in-person experience. And then the community networking happy hour pass also is ticketed just to ensure crowds, volumes, and to make sure that we're able to maintain safety at this particular event. So I just want to take a pause for just a moment to see if any questions have come in through the chat.
So unless I've missed it, I haven't seen any questions. This is a good reminder that if you do have questions, please feel free to be putting those in the chat, and Rachel's going to be answering those throughout.
Yes, so feel free to keep putting them in as we want to make sure that we're still answering them throughout of everything. So really some of the core components, of DC Startup Week is we've been around for the last 5 years, really focusing on building community here in DC. Right now in the DC Startup Week community is over 10,000 entrepreneurs and startups. Really, this event is once a year, these 5 days that we kind of put towards this huge labor of love of this content and information to be able to have all you as attendees to be able to connect, network, and learn from each other on the virtual platform. So that way you'll be able to have that it's a little bit more than just meeting on Zoom or meeting on WebEx, that you're able to see one another throughout the virtual content. We have virtual networking, where it's going to be a virtual networking where you're able to connect with people in a virtual space, along with that in-person happy hour that we are doing on that Wednesday of DC Startup Week. So we're really excited for that. And that way you're able to have that, because that's one of the huge things that we're striving for, is really helping in a virtual environment to still allow for that connection that you could have in person, considering the state that we are in with the pandemic now. So that's one of the most important pieces to think about throughout DC Startup Week, of that connection. Our theme for this year of DC Startup Week is It's Your Time. One of the things that we believe that's kind of happened in, throughout the pandemic is a lot of startups, a lot of founders, or a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs has really been thinking about survival mode because of the pandemic, because that's what we've had to do. And we want to kind of start that shift of the mindset, even though we're still in the midst of the pandemic, but to be forward thinking and think through what is it your time to do, and to come to DC Startup Week by setting your intentions. That intention could be to create your product, to find a developer, to get your first sale, or build a partnership. And then when you're looking at the content, because we'll have over 100 different pieces of content to be able to choose from, is to pick and choose what content's most valuable for. What do you want to learn? What questions do you need answered? Who do you want to meet? And come very specific to DC Startup Week this year about what is it your time to do. We're going to ask you throughout the week to kind of publicize that information, of set that intention publicly through our virtual platform. It's kind of like a Twitter news feed where you're able to post and interact with one another, as well as leveraging that of who do you want to make connections to as you're looking at people's profiles of other attendees, is who do you want to message and who do you might want to try to set up those one-on-one virtual coffee chats, or if you're comfortable to try to meet one-on-one with some particular people as well. I thought I might have saw something come through in the chat, but I'm not able to see it. I don't know, Catherine, if you're able to see it.
I'll go ahead and share what that is. So, and I think you started to answer this, but I think it's great to always reiterate. Someone was curious, is it appropriate to expect all sessions to be networking sessions with other businesses as well as, the content of that session?
So all sessions, so there's different aspects you could network during the virtual sessions and components. Of course, like we're leveraging Zoom for a majority of these events. So you have the Zoom chat where you can see everyone that they'll, might introduce themselves in the chat. Then you could also private message them during that content. A lot of the educational content, panels, fireside chats, workshops, presentations, that's me more focused on the educational component rather than networking. But then there'll be specific times throughout the week that's dedicated to particular networking where it'll be held on Zoom, and we're using another platform to allow for further interaction, a little bit easier, kind of just make it seem like you're actually in a room with other people in a virtual setting, to be able to have that. Was there another question that came through in the chat?
That was all the questions that have come in. I have a question that I'll add, which is just a little bit about the overall energy, because I know that DC Startup Week has it's one of the things that I love of many of DC Startup Week is just how much great energy there is with so many entrepreneurs coming together. And if you could talk about that generally, but also, some of the experience that you've seen, even as a lot of this happens virtually, I know there's still a lot of that great energy that's there. If you could speak to that a little bit.
100%. And that's like a huge, big component. Like one of the main purposes of DC Startup Week is to celebrate the ecosystem of startups and entrepreneurship and businesses in the DC region. And that's one of the huge components. So, of course, pre-pandemic, a lot of energy in person, thousands of people coming together each day to learn together, to support one another, to celebrate together, that we're also able to bring that in a virtual setting, which is amazing to be able to see that and amazing to be able to do it. And when I say virtual setting, there's the couple different aspects of virtual. Of not only we have our virtual platform that allows for connection and sharing and information gathering. We have the educational content held on Zoom, and then we have additional networking that we're going to be able to doing virtually. This year, we're excited that we're able to do a hybrid event, and that hybrid component is going to then have those limited in-person gatherings. So it's limited spaces are available just because we have to be safe due to COVID regulations, that we can't bring 500 people in a room together for this year. Hopefully next year we'll be able to get to our normal range like we were able to do previously with that. But that way it still allows us to be able to do some in-person gathering, some in-person celebration, for that excitement. But one of the things I would say that I love about the DC Startup Week community, and really about DC entrepreneurs, DC founders at all different stages, is how supportive we are in one another. That entrepreneurs who've been successful here always have that mindset of paying it forward and supporting entrepreneurs who are earlier stage or have an idea to figure out how do you get to that next level, and how do you get to a stage of a success or growth or managing failure, pivoting, you name it. Is that support of one another is one of the biggest, and I find crucial aspects of DC Startup Week, is that that's the best way that we can continue to grow and thrive as an ecosystem here, is if we continue to support one another and help each other rise. And that's really the biggest mindset. And I think that's what's really allowed the DC Startup Week community to grow, is really just bringing together amazing people who are looking to want to see each other succeed. So a couple things of the audience that I would love to kind of ask or to get involved with. So the first thing I would say, like, to have your support, definitely if this seems like an event for you, if you're looking to learn, if you're looking to network, to meet new people, whether that's virtually or in person or a level that you're comfortable with, I would say go to our Eventbrite page where you're able to register for your ticket and register for the event here. So if you go to our website at dcstartupweek.org, you can click grab your pass. I will put that in the chat functionality once I stop sharing my screen, or I might be able to do it right here. So I'm just throwing that in the chat right here that you're able to then go to our website to be able to then register for your ticket. The second ask I would have, if you register for your ticket, you're planning to attend it, we would love for you to invite any of your friends or colleagues that you think would be beneficial to attend it as well, whether that's inviting them through email, text message, or sharing it on your social platforms. That would be an amazing benefit as well. A couple other things, you could sign up for our newsletter, which is all the way at the bottom right here. And that's going to give you first access to content, information, other events and programming that we're going to be putting on, not only at DC Startup Week, but our goal is to do more programming throughout the year of 2021 and 2022, both in person and virtually. So that way you'll be the first to know about those programming. So just to reiterate real fast, grab your pass for DC Startup Week, share it with anyone that you think would also benefit from attending, and then sign up for a newsletter as well, so that way you're the first to know about upcoming events or programs, and we also share out what events the community is putting on together as a whole.
Rachel, there were a couple questions about the different types of passes. Someone had asked if there were 2 different VIP passes. I think that there's one for early stage and one for growth. Could you say a little bit more about what either the differences between those, or if someone was looking and thinking about VIP versus simply participating in the virtual?
Yeah, so the biggest difference for that is this year is that our VIP programming is in person and our virtual is only being held virtual. So if you're just looking for virtual content, virtual networking, then the virtual content pass is the way to be able to go with. If you're looking for that in-person experience of both, happy hour for networking, but also in-person content to be able to meet and learn with like-minded individuals, then the VIP experience is going to be where you might want to go with it. We have 2 different experiences. They're both going to be held on the same day, but what the different content of stages of track is. So an early stage VIP ticket is more towards a founder who's an early stage founder or early stage startup that maybe they've started building their product or have an idea and want to figure out, how do I make that idea come to life? Or they're starting building out a product, they're looking for sales, looking for partnerships, maybe they're looking to fundraise. We're going to have a lot of great investors and founders who successfully fundraise as speakers at that particular event. The second one also held on the same day, same venue, so the groups are going to be together for that day. Our growth stage founders, growth stage startups that typically have really done a round of investment, have sales, have a lot of partnerships, but really looking at, how do I grow from maybe myself, my founder, and 2 others to a team of 10, a team of 15, and we're going to have founders who've successfully done that as speakers, who have amazing brands, you have amazing fundraising stories. For example, one of the content will be from a couple founders who've raised millions of dollars in VC funding. We're going to have some founders talk about CEOs and lessons learned, how to improve your ability to be a CEO, a better manager of your team as you're looking for growth. A couple other topics around building out, a recognizable brand, your marketing strategy. So it's really going to be an amazing day. It's going to kick off with a lunch, followed by a couple hours of educational content. We're going to have the pitch competition there for both early stage and growth stage founders. And then we're going to close that day with a happy hour. So we're really excited to be able to offer that one day of in-person at DC Startup Week this year. Just to reiterate that we are requiring vaccinations, and if not a vaccination, a negative COVID test. So we're really looking at making sure that it's going to be a safe day, in person.
Rachel, we had another question that came in direct message. So, given this is the 5th year, it looks like there are a lot of different ways that people can be involved, and some of that might include learning about what the involvement in the pitch competition is, or learning about how to be a presenter, and some of that may not be until next year. But if people are interested in those types of opportunities for next year, what would that look like?
Yes, so every year we put out a call to volunteers, a call to present, a call for pitch competition applications. Right now, the pitch competition application, the speaker application are closed. But the best thing to do would be to sign up for a newsletter, because that's where we put out that information first of those applications that you're able to apply for. So being a part of our newsletter at the bottom of our website, of DC Startup Week, that's going to be the best place to start, where you're going to be the first one to know there. And we also post it out on social media as well for those things. You could follow us just at DC Startup Week across Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, across those channels. So that's going to be the best place, is just to kind of stay in tune. And typically we start announcing a lot of those opportunities about 4 months out from the conference. So I would say end of May, beginning of June is where we start posting out that.
Wonderful. And I have another question as well. So startup weeks, my understanding, they happen, actually, I'm going to ask this other question that just came in because it's more relevant right now. What is the proof of vaccination that you require? What does that look like? If you could talk about those details.
Right now we're asking for 2 different ways. First off, to email it up to us beforehand. So a photo of your vaccination card and a photo of your license, so we're able to match the name. And that's what we're going to do. Is we're asking for it to get it prior to the event. So that way it makes check-in a little bit smoother, a little bit faster at the event itself. If you aren't able to email that, we'll ask for that both at DC Startup Week. It's just the vaccination card and your license to be able to match the name for it.
Wonderful. And someone is asking just a little bit more closely. I know you just covered a bit about this. Between the growth track and the service-based track, since there's a similar focus on scaling and growing, could you say just a little bit more about the difference, or how someone should decide between those?
So our service-based track is held only virtual this year. So that's all virtual content, about 10 different topics, 10 different sessions about service-based, for service-based industry, service-based founders. Of course, like the growth stage and early stage are relevant to any type of founder, any type of industry they're built. So that way it could be no matter the type of company that you might have or the stage that you will find valuable in terms of like the content for it. And definitely the speakers that we will have will be a range of different types of companies for it. So in terms of that, experience of that day, and one of the benefits of that in-person day, the same venue, even if you sign up for the early stage, you could still go through some growth stage talk. So you'll be able to then mix and match of what makes sense for you as a founder or what content that you might need. So you'll be able to move throughout the 2 different rooms, no matter which ticket that you purchase for early stage and growth stage.
Thank you for that. And then going back to the question I was going to ask a moment ago, my understanding is that not DC Startup Weeks, but Startup Weeks happen in other cities as well, but there are some unique things about the DC Startup Week if someone has participated in a different Startup Week elsewhere. I don't know if you're able to share any context on that.
Yeah, so there's startup weeks that go on really throughout the world, which is an amazing. So that's one thing that we do partner with other startup weeks. We learn from one another. We share resources, we share ideas, which is really amazing. One of the biggest differences, I would say, for our DC Startup Week versus some others in other cities is that, we really strive to do programming throughout the year and really connection throughout the year. So that would be more monthly events, whether that's, pre-pandemic, a lot of those were in person. Now in the pandemic environment, a lot of virtual monthly events. We're hoping in 2022 we could do more in-person monthly events, whether that's educational or whether that's a happy hour, to continue to bring that community together. We also keep up our newsletter where we try to promote other community events happening throughout the year. So that way it's kind of a one place where you're able to access a lot of content and information of getting involved with the community. I would say in terms of other cities, we're one of the largest startup weeks in terms of volume, in terms of the support and the content that we're able to put together throughout the 5 days. This year, we are trying out the hybrid of doing some in person. So that's different than other startup weeks that are just continuing to be completely virtual, or we've seen other startup weeks going back completely in person. We just felt that we weren't ready to be a full in-person event just yet with where we are with the COVID numbers and the Delta variant. So many differences. I think our community makes DC very different. I think the supportive ecosystem, how supportive the founders are at all different stages is really unique to DC, that I haven't found that or seen that within other startup cities. So I think that's something really unique, is the people, the attendees, that culture that we have at DC Startup Week and the DC founders here. So I think that's going to be one thing that you're really going to find, is just that supportive environment, that supportive ecosystem. And as a founder myself, of having my company for 7 years now, is that you really need that support of other entrepreneurs who are going through similar stage of time, but other supportive entrepreneurs who might be larger than you, whether that's the same industry or a different industry to ask them questions, advice, learnings, and learn from their failure, their pivots, and to help you grow. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing of coming to DC Startup Week with your intention of what you're looking to get out of it, what type of growth you'll need, or what is your goal, and really asking yourself those questions of what sessions do I need to attend in order to meet that? Who do I need to meet? And that's definitely something you can look towards me. The two other organizers, Corey Lawrence and Seema Alexandra, we're happy to help, facilitate any type of introductions or help guide you in terms of content that would be best for you to reach out to, or as well as answering any questions that you might have, which you could always reach out to us just at info@dcstartupweek.org or directly on our virtual platform. When we release that out next year, you'll see our photos and you can send us direct messages and chat.
Thank you for that. We have one more question in the chat, but I also want to be able to give an opportunity for our call-in user to ask a question. So I'm going to give our call-in user, I'm going to unmute your line. If you do want to ask anything, you have an option to unmute after this question. But the question in the chat is, how many are you allowing for the in-person event? How many tickets are available for that?
So we have a limited amount of tickets available for it. I think, right now we have, tickets sold for it and different attendees coming. So limited passes available. I would say probably we have around like 50 tickets still available for the in-person event. So definitely if you're interested, I think joining it sooner rather than later, just because we can't have it open-ended for anyone to attend. I think the maximum that we're going to have at that particular event is going to be around 200 people for it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. For our call-in user, I don't know if you had any questions. I did send you a request to unmute. If not, no worries. I know we have just a couple minutes left. Are there any final questions for Rachel?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yes.
Hi, this is Samuel Nixon. Greetings to you. Thank you for the information about the DC Startup Week. I was able to participate in at least one other one past. I unfortunately didn't get to hear all of the presentation this afternoon that you did earlier because of a conflict in time. So I was going to ask, is there a place to go or a way to hear this presentation again at a later time?
Yes. Later today, everyone who is registered for this session will receive a copy of the recording directly through Eventbrite, no matter how you registered for it. And if you do have any problems receiving that information, you can always feel free to reach out to our team at inno.ed@dc.gov. And we're happy to help you get connected to that information.
That's o.ed.dc.gov?
inno.ed@dc.gov. I'm putting that in the chat.
Okay, and I didn't, because I tried to sign in with my registration, but I didn't remember my password, so I'm in as a guest right now. So okay. I'll have to. Well, I can put my email in the chat there if I can get the recording.
Okay, we'll make sure that we grab that out of the chat. So I know that we are at time. So first, I just want to say to Rachel, thank you so much for today, but thank you for all that you've been doing over the last 5 years to help build and bring together the DC ecosystem. DC Startup Week and your work is such an important and beautiful part of that. And I just want to give you an opportunity to say anything in closing before we go ahead and close up.
No, thank you. Thank you to the whole team at DSLBD for all your support over the last years. Thank you for everyone who's attended and everyone who might be rewatching this recording. Again, just dcstartupweek.org is the place to go for all your information, a place to register. Always feel free to reach out to me directly through email, info@dcstartupweek.org, or LinkedIn or other channels. We want to make sure that we're continuing to build a supportive ecosystem. So any questions that you might have additional that might pop up, or anything that you might need, or how to make the most out of DC Startup Week, feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the DC Startup Week team.
Rachel, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.